so that business people will know that these people have received the training. We create a simple licensing model via Creative Commons, which allow people to share knowledge freely. How many of you have heard of Project Gutenberg? No, hardly anybody. 39,000 books which are out of copyright, available electronically to be pulled over the internet, with references to 100,000 books that can be freely available to students. In 1994, we had a problem where supercomputer companies were going out of business. So they created a concept known as Beowulf systems to create supercomputers. And it was Linux, the same Linux I use on my notebook here, was running on those supercomputers. You can train your students how to program those supercomputers with software that runs on their notebooks. And what types of problems do they solve? Problems of data mining, problems of resource prospecting, which is very important to Brazil. It's very important to the environment. You can teach them to search document databases, virtual reality, and making movies like the Titanic, Lord of the Rings, and The Hobbit. All of these are rendered on these supercomputers using Linux. We even have a movie making software called Blender, which allows students to make animated movies and games and even 3D architecture. The software is free, the movies are free, and the intermediate results are free. Even the training materials are free. Free as in freedom, and free as in beer. You don't have to have a very expensive lot of money to create these supercomputers. Here is one made of cast-off computer systems sitting on the floor, hooked together with very, very sophisticated networking coming out the back, all running Linux. And you can go down to embedded systems, very small systems, also running the same Linux kernel. So imagine your students taking these systems and creating products from them. Products that could be manufactured in Brazil and giving jobs to people in Brazil, and products to export out of Brazil. I am working on a project here in Brazil where I have a great deal of frustration. Why? Because I can't get manufacturing companies in Brazil to manufacture the quantity of products which I need for my project. They say, just buy it from Taiwan. Just bring it in and pay the duty. Just pass the duty on to the customer. But what does that do for jobs in Brazil? Who is going to buy my products if they don't have a job? Henry Ford, when he created the first automobile production line, was standing with the head of his employment union. And he said to the union head, how many of these machines are going to pay money and union dues to your union? And the union said, Mr. Ford, how many of your machines are going to buy your cars? And Henry Ford, from that time on, gave the best, highest possible wages to his employees because he wanted the best employees and because he knew that that way they would have the money to buy his cars. You need to have the manufacturing in Brazil, not just buy things from Taiwan. There's a recipe for disaster. So the challenge for this region is to get your students this equipment and bring them together to develop new products and new services that Brazil can export. Where are the business people in this conference? I see teachers, I see students, I see politicians. But you should have business people here too, giving input and working with you, rolling up their sleeves. So my challenge to you is not just to applaud. Go back and blog about it. Fight for it. Just like you fight for your freedom, just like Richard told you last night to fight for your freedom, you have to fight for this. Don't let them get away with it. Remind them that their tax dollars are funding your education. They should be involved. You should be in control, but they should be involved. Would closed source software have allowed these people to do what they did? The person in the upper right-hand corner, his name is Eric Trowan. He was one of 3 people at the age of 22 who started his own computer company called Red Hat Software. He is now a multi-billionaire. The person in the black and white photo, his name is Mark Spencer. At the age of 19, he wrote a piece of software called Asterisk. It is a basis of telephony. He started a company called Digium. It employs about 350 people. But it employs thousands more around the world installing it for end-user customers. Those thousands of people do not pay anything to Mark Spencer. They just pick up the software because it's free, and they charge customers for installing it. They make a living doing that. And sometimes they never even talk to Mark. But Mark is a multimillionaire selling free software. The person right there in the lower right-hand corner started a distribution of Linux at the age of 14. He had sold 20,000 copies before his parents found out what he was doing. They said, "Why didn't you tell us what you were doing?" And he said, "I didn't need your help." He's not a multi-millionaire, but he does have his own company now. The person in the middle on the right-hand side started programming at the age of 9, was hacking the Linux kernel at the age of 12, writing device drivers at the age of 15. And now he's doing graduate level work at the University of Washington, helping them develop new interfaces for the future. He never graduated from high school. The person in the lower left-hand corner lived in a very, very poor suburb of South Africa, known as Soweto. He was running his own support system out of his house and sending email to Linus Torvalds to help him fix the Linux kernel. His government was so surprised that anybody in Soweto knew anything about computers. But they started an open source development center in the town. In And finally, the last one, my newest entry, was 12 and a half years old when he created his own Linux distribution. He now has his own company with 20,000 people buying support from him at the age of 15. All of these people learned because they had access to the source code and they could see what was happening on the internet. Nobody on the internet asked them how old they were, what sex they were, what race they were, what country they came from, what sexual persuasion they were, what religion they were. Nobody asked them that. They just said, "Show me the code." And these people went as far and as fast as they wanted to go, with nobody holding them back. Should be our goal. So today, even the student who has no money can find a college curriculum on the internet and can find the objectives of that, learn from information from the internet, but only if they have access to the internet. My niece teaches in the area of kindergarten 12 years. She teaches completely over the internet. She never meets her students face to face.